Live.
Good afternoon, magandang hapon sa ating mga tagapakinig, tagamasid dito sa Senior City Kwentuhan. Coming to you every Saturday po, kami dito sa Inet Philippines in partnership with CISO Channel. Good afternoon, magandang hapon sa ating Sorry, napakinggan yung aking cellphone. I-off ko muna. Anyway, kami po rito ay broadcasting every Saturday po 3 o'clock to 4:30. Ang focus po natin ay adult education and lifelong learning. Pero every Tuesday po naman, the same time, 3 o'clock to 4:30, ang sponsor to at co-host ay galing sa senior sa panahon ng COVID. At ang nagko-co-host doon sina Chuck Manansala, Floro Francisco, Edna Aquino at iba pa. Pero ngayong Saturday po, as usual, ang co-host po niyo ako. Ako po si Ed de la Torre, napaka-senior na 77 years old. At ang co-host ko dito sa katabi ko,
mas bata pa, si Girlie Villariba.
Magsisitenta na sa Disyembre. 29th episode na po natin.
Yay!
And tamang-tama ang ating guest sa hapong ito. Kaya namin naisip ni Girlie ang ating guest. Bigla kong nabasa, kay iting yata yun sa yung kanyang misis at kapartner sa bahay. Finally, magre-retire na si Mon Isberto sa Smart PLDT. Ay, kako, pag natin retire na, pwede na natin imbitahin kasi wala na yung constraint na kailangan siya magsalita as public affairs ng ano. Ay, tinawagan po namin agad. Sabi ko, Mon, pwede? Sabi niya, of course, pero sorry, hindi ako pwede agad. So finally, we are very lucky po. Ngayong hapon, available na po siya. Naririto po siya. Pakilala muna natin later, kwentuhan ng konting boy sa mga hindi kakilala. Naririto po si Ramon Isberto, si Mon. Hi Mon, greet our listeners and viewers.
Ay, magandang hapon, Ed, at saka Girlie, at a very good afternoon to everyone who's joining us today, no? Medyo tumitingin ako sa labas, medyo maulap-ulap na, baka humulan na naman mamaya. So,
ganun na nga.
At thank you Ed for inviting me, no? Pero clarification lang, hindi pa ako officially retired.
Talaga? Akala ko.
I'm transitioning na, so it'll it's just a matter of time. Okay. Pero pwede naman tayong magkwentuhan.
Hindi naman Actually nga po nung tinext ko siya, actually sa FB Messenger tayo nag-connect Sabi ko nung una, ang idea ko talaga agad na it is a continuing concern dito sa atin na tayo yung mga senior citizens, many in different ways medyo active, but now precisely under pandemic, but even before that, paano magamit itong net so that we to exercise our citizenship, both to inform ourselves, to bring out our voices, to reach out to others. And sabi ko, naku, siguro si Mon naman, with all his years in this industry, he can give us not only technical tips, but also the social and other behavioral and what to learn. Pero at okay naman sa kanya. Nung una sana, the topic was tips to become senior netizens. Pero typical ng Simon, those who don't know him, for a long while, host rin niya ng isang talk show sa GMA7 yata noon, no?
Yes. Ano yan?
At saka dahil sa communication siya, concern siya, paano ba yung angle natin? So, sobrang sineryoso itong guesting niya, nag-isip ng matagal. Until 2 days ago, sabi niya, ganito na ang angle. Pwede bang, it will be a session with a tech lolo. Isang lolong techie. Okay, maganda yan.
Okay, game.
Tapos sabi niya, at pag-usapan ko yung ilan kong mga paboritong mga projects as part of the corporate social responsibility ng Smart PLDT. But ang maganda naman dito, sa ibang mga guests natin normally, after initial kwentuhan, I prepare some of the slides ng kanilang talk. Siyempre ito self-reliant talaga naman. Sabi ako na lang gagawa ng mga slides ko. Salamat, ang dali. Pero normally, sa simula, Mon, mga first 10 minutes or so, konting kwento lang about you personally and also how you have been coping in this pandemic and this quarantine. So just sharing with fellow seniors. So how has your life been this during this whole pandemic and whatever restrictions there have been sa ating
Well, well,
movement?
well, Ed, kasi I think this is not unique, no? Work from home ako eh.
Okay.
Senior citizen, so medyo, what you call it, medyo, mas kailangan mas maingat. Pero
Mm.
ang work from home, mas matindi.
Correct.
Hindi ka makaiwas,
Well, yung nga, anong tawag dito? Unang-una, the situation, Ed at saka Girlie, maraming mga nangyayari. So it's not just that the situation of working from home is unusual. The whole situation itself, no? Yung circumstances ngayon ng negosyo at saka ng buhay, medyo iba talaga. So, mas marami talagang trabaho to begin with. Tapos pangalawa, kung nasa bahay ka lang, at saka work from home, alam mo kung hindi ka mag-ingat, and this is what I tell my colleagues, you will find yourself working till kingdom come.
Oh, masyado.
Medyo, that's understandable for a week or 2 or 3, pero pag ganito katagal na, hindi na pwede yun.
Oo.
So we really have to start really organizing our lives, no? Given this situation, so that gumagawa tayo ng constraints or limits, no? Para makapagpahinga naman, magkaroon ng oras din para isipin mo, what an irony, nasa bahay ka na, wala ka pang oras sa pamilya mo.
Tama, tama.
Which has happened. Si Iting naiinis sa akin. Oh, pwede ka ba alis dyan? Mga ginagawa mo. So, no, it's been tough. It's been hard for the past couple of months. Kasi nga, lalo na sa aming sa industriya, sa telecom, ay maraming trabaho.
Ay, oo, grabe, no?
Oh, so talagang it's been hard, it's hard pressed ang trabaho for the past couple of months.
Lalo na in your case because you're also in a way supervising and managing other people, ano?
Yes, pero alam mo, as I'm sure you've also discovered from your own experience, na marami ka talaga magagawa using the existing platforms and technologies now.
Oo.
For example, now, kasi I have staff also in Visayas and Mindanao, no?
Oh.
Before, we didn't have that habit so much na magkakaroon ng mga conference calls. Ngayon, normal. I want to talk with somebody from Cagayan de Oro. I just use this stuff. In our case, we're using Microsoft Teams.
Microsoft Teams kayo.
So we can have a conversation. Nagiging actually. On the one hand, it's not as real as a face-to-face meeting. But on the other hand, ang dami mo pwedeng gawin kasi ang dami mo pwedeng ma-reach na tao in a very short period of time.
So we save all the travel and traffic hassle, ano?
Yes, that's true. I mean, so actually, we have discovered if it's just arranged properly and if you have the right discipline and habits, actually it can be very productive.
Tama, totoo.
Ang problema lang yung kailangan mo kontrolin yung sarili mo at saka yung mga kasama mo sa trabaho na sandali, kailangan ng pahinga.
Actually, isa yan siguro when they talk of the future new normal, ano, na hindi naman balik sa dating lahat ay face-to-face even if there is a vaccine or a cure. Sayang itong learning natin dito sa opportunity ito, gamitin itong platforms na ganyan. Pero nandun nga yung usapin, paano ngayon yung discipline niyan, paano yung methods niyan, even the ethics of it para wag namang mag-i-intrude sa our own legitimate private and personal spaces. Baka naman pigain tayo masyado or tayo mismo gusto natin punuin dahil sa nabihasa tayo. Pero grabe, I agree with you. Mas marami. So normally you communicate, kung work-related, you communicate with Microsoft Teams. Yun ang yung preferred.
Kasi, we have certain cybersecurity rules.
Kailangan sa security.
Certified yung platform na ginagamit para sigurado hindi nagkakaroon ng problema sa security. So, but we're also allowed to use Zoom and others. No? But for our internal communications, we're really using Microsoft Teams. Pero yung nga, ang isang nga dun tama yung sabi mo kanina, Ed, even after COVID, assuming that there is a post-pandemic situation, I think this kind of communication is really going to be part of people's normal lives.
Yeah.
I just realized, for example, ang dali pa lang tawagan mo at kausapin mo yung mga kamag-anak mo or
Also, ano?
in anywhere in the world.
Oo.
Kailangan lang magkatugma yung time zone nyo.
Yun nga lang.
Pero otherwise, in our work, for example, we have people who are abroad right now. We can easily call them and easily transact business. Kaya meron kami nagagawa din. So this kind of situation na yung communications is much more flexible at saka, richer in the sense na may video na.
Lalo yung video.
You can actually collaborate. Pwede talaga. So I think this will be part already of our normal lives. Even when, let's say, pwede nang umikot-ikot katulad ng pre-COVID days.
Marami nga nagsasabi, lalo na nga with this, pasok ng video, na may mga tao talagang dito nga sa mga webinars, pupunta rin para lang makita yung mukha ng taong matagal na nilang hindi nakita. Ako rin yung maraming mga ilang guests in the past, noon ko lang first time nakita uli ang mukha nila dahil dito, no?
Lalo na yun.
Kahit tayo, gayon lang tayo nagkita face to face.
Well, aside from to extreme cases, yung mga kamag-anak natin abroad whom we have not talked with or seen with for the longest time, kaya na pala. It can be easily done. And it's that realization that just opens the door to more things that can be done. Yung ang problema lang dito, Ediso, and I think this is particularly true for young people, may sariling protocol yung ganitong klaseng komunikasyon eh.
Yeah.
May ethics din.
Ano yun?
May ethics din.
Yes.
Pag-away.
So, yun ang kailangan unti-unti dapat matutunan ng mga tao kung paano gamitin ito na sa mga tamang paraan. This includes technical things like, for example, hindi mo ba napapansin sa mga calls na nakikita mo sa TV, etc. Ang karamihan ng tao hindi tumitingin sa
camera.
Diba? Kasi there's very understandable reason for that. Yung utak natin, yung brain natin is automatically oriented to look at the face of the person na kausap natin.
Hindi sa camera.
Hindi sa camera. No, kasi ganun ang, I don't know if the right word is instinct, but that's the way our brain works. Kung gusto natin kausapin yung tao, tumitingin tayo sa mukha. Ang problema lang, pag ginawa natin yun sa ganitong setup, ang lumalabas, para hindi ka tumitingin sa taong kausap mo.
Kasi yung camera medyo nasa taas, yung screen nasa baba, kung nakatingin ka sa babang ganyan. Tama.
So there is this kind of disjoint, no? Na how do you now establish communications? Kasi if you read the human psychology, the face is so important in communicating.
Tama.
And people read so much meaning into the expressions of people's faces habang nag-uusap sila. Okay? So, yun yung isang disjoint, no? Pero kung yung mga katulad ko na halimbawa, I have spent quite a number of years also on television, medyo sanay na kami tumitingin sa camera.
Ayun, no?
Pero that's something, that's a small trick that I think people should learn. Na if you want to be expressive to dun sa audience na gusto mong kausap, kailangan tumingin ka sa camera. You will glance from time to time dun sa mukha ng kausap mo. But if you are talking, you're expressing something, kailangan tumitingin ka sa camera. Kasi yung mata, yun ang tinitignan ng tao kung gusto nilang maintindihan kung anong sinasabi talaga ng tao.
Okay. Galing yun Okay. First tip sa sino mang mga tao yan. Kahit kayo, I just realized na gumagano na, tumitingin ako paminsan-minsan sa iyo dyan sa screen. Pero nakatingin ako ngayon sa green light sa camera ng aking laptop. Pero it's you must acquire and develop that habit kasi para bagang sino kinakausap mo dyan ay ilaw lang yan. Ang gusto mo kausapin yung mukha ni Mon nasa baba. Tama, no?
Yun some of those different adjustments that you have to make in this kind of communication. Kasi nga, if, as a communicator, you always ask yourself, how can you be more effective? Pag nagsasalita ka with an audience, whether just one-to-one or it is one-to-many. So these are some of the things that I think people have to learn over time na, kung gusto mo talaga, kasi ang karamihan na nangyayari, ganito, nakatingin doon sa baba. Kung ganito ang itsura ko, hindi ako nakatingin sa iyo, Ed.
Tama.
So, and I was just reading, some psychology books recently nga na. Yung pala ang epekto nun. Kailangan talaga na especially if you're trying to establish an emotional connection with the people that you are conversing with, you must, as much as possible, try to simulate a face-to-face conversation where people are looking into each other's eyes.
Tama.
No?
Without, at the same time, ang nakikita mo is a light of the camera. Grabe, ano? Ayan,
number one yun.
This is the makings of a future another seminar, or maybe even really a training workshop siguro. So I mean, kasi sabi mo nga, this platform is there. There's a lot of advantage. But then we have to learn how to use it properly. This is not simply, it doesn't come naturally in a sense, There's an adjustment.
It doesn't. In fact, the problem is nga, all our biology, all our evolution is pointing in a different direction. In fact,
let me take off from there sa ating kwentuhang buhay before you go to your prepared topic.
Sige.
Kasi nga, sabi mo nga, tingnan natin looking back. Ikaw, I mean, we're talking of communications, for people who, sa hindi ho kami kilala, I'll give you a little secret. Kami ni Mon, una kami nagkakilala in another, quarantine situation.
Medyo yan.
Pareho kaming nakulong nung panahon ng martial law. But then after that, we move on to other spheres of, what you call it, maybe citizens engagement. And he went into journalism, no?
Yeah.
And then later, not only sa newspaper, but later also, as I said, TV talk show host, eventually landing, sabi mo nga, almost quarter of a century ka na sa PLDT Smart, no? So siguro ang unang tanong ko lang, Mon, what made you decide pagkalabas sa bilangguan na magtrabaho sa field ng communication, journalism? Was this always a passion? Why did you choose?
During college days in Ateneo, Ed, I was writing already. I wasn't in the college paper, pero nagsusulat-sulat na rin ako. But then, anong tawag nito? How do I say this? Naalala mo si Saturn, di ba? Kasama natin sa Bicol.
Oo, totoo.
Nahingit ako kay Saturn noon kasi ang bilis-bilis niya magsulat.
Totoo.
I mean, he sits down, tapos in about an hour or so, tapos na. Okay? Ako, bleeder. Hirap ako magsulat. So I asked him one day, Saturn, paano yung ginagawa ito? Sobrang disiplinado naman yung pagsusulat mo. Sabi niya, habit. Kasi nga, kung journalist ka, araw-araw ka nagsusulat. Whether you like it or not, nasa mood ka o hindi, basta tatlong storya kailangan gawin mo araw-araw. So I was thinking, why not go into something like that? If I wanted to really, develop my skills as a writer and as a communicator. And I did. So pumasok na ako sa journalism. I entered the business newspaper called Business Day.
Yeah, Business Day. Yeah.
Tapos, that's where I learned. Kasi araw-araw nga magsusulat ka eh. So, whatever is your mood. But then, aside from that, the process of writing itself was very beneficial. Meaning, hindi ka makakapagsulat kung hindi ka mag-research, hindi ka mag-interview. So you develop, as a journalist, you develop the habit of acquiring information quickly, putting it together, assembling it, and developing a basic understanding of the subject. Hindi ka expert, no? Pero ang expertise mo is may papaliwanag mo yung isang paksa, isang subject. Kahit gaano komplikado, kailangan isulat mo sa isang paraan na maintindihan ng ordinaryong tao. So that's a kind of, I found that a very useful discipline. You talk with the experts, boil it down, make it as simple as possible so the ordinary non-expert reader can understand it. So it's a very good discipline, and I would recommend that. I mean, journalism is a hard and fast way to learn how to communicate.
Yeah. Ang galing, ang galing. It's a good insight kasi nga one of the themes as I told you sa ating exchanges na ako interesado is how really to develop, I call it nga active citizenship. Paano maging citizen na? Kasi kung minsan na iba pag citizen is voting lang for or against a leader. But the whole idea of being able to communicate with each other about issues that concern us, na sabi mo nga, we don't have to be the expert, but we can tap different sources. Paano ipaliwanag para tayo nagkakaintindihan, whether we agree or not, at least nag-uusap. Because yan ang isang sabi nilang danger nga sa panahon ng pandemic and quarantine, na we become isolated from each other. So hindi, nawawala na yung whatever conversational relationship we have, and we tend to restrict sa kanya-kanya na lang pareho nag-iisip. In the long run, that's very unhealthy because unang-una, araming punto de vista namang mahalaga. Pangalawa, things are changing, and even experts now have to scramble. Kaya nga yung tema natin sa Saturday natin is lifelong learning. We have to keep learning. But then, sabi ko nga, there are those na nagre-research, malalim, baka maraming alam, pero kung minsan baka hindi sila kayang makapagpaliwanag ng malinaw. May iba naman na parang magaling magsalita pero hindi ma-bridge yung usapin ng mga expert na mas mahaba ang ni-research at yung sabihin natin the average informed citizen. We're not talking down naman or downing ourselves, kundi lalo na dito sa atin sa senior sa panahon ng COVID, mga listeners natin, ang bulto nito, more than 90% are actually retired professionals, no? But in their different fields, and at the same time, they're here together, ang discussion of basic like, may nakabasa na ba ng senior citizens law? Ano nga ba talaga ang ating rights? Ano nga ba talaga ang ating responsibilities rin? Ano pa ang pwede nating makontribute? Mga ganun no?
But merong mga nagtatanong, paano daw tayo mahahanap? Akala nila, papasok pa sila sa Zoom. So,
paliwanag lang po. You don't have to be invited to Zoom. Para kayo makinig po ay pasok lang kayo sa Facebook, sa CISO channel, Lapis, or dun sa senior sa panahon ng COVID, nag-host ho yun ng isang watch party nito, or sa Education Network, or sa Education for Life Foundation. Kasi nga, pag Zoom, matagal pa Ito, Facebook lang, accessible na agad. No? And uulitin ko po, kung sabi nyo, ay, na-miss namin yung first part, or gusto ko namin pakinggan uli, this is being recorded po, and this will be replayed dito sa respective areas. Saka archive po ito doon sa Lapis CISO channel. So, pwede nyong balik-balikan po ito.
Yung may poster.
At saka, yung may poster po doon sa announcement. At saka ulitin ko po, please, through your Facebook, pwede na kayong mag-text, mag-chat. Kung may tanong kayo, may comment, o ano man. And just tell us even nasan kayo para malaman namin naman. Alam mo naman, lahat na nag-uusap rito, na-insecure, meron ba nakikinig sa amin? Pero pag nanonood.
Meron 77.
Meron ng panimulang 7. Dati ho, umaabot tayo hanggang 6,000 towards the end kasi hindi naman lahat nanood tuloy-tuloy. Ganun naman tayo no? Pero yan. So, Mon, isa pa, at a personal level, lahat tinanong namin yan. Did you ever feel anxious? or parang bang afraid even na baka tamaan ka? Do you feel... And then how do you cope? How do you maintain? Kasi ang isang karakteristik po ni Mon, sabi ni Iting sa kanyang sulat sa kanya, at kami rin, itong si Mon talaga, bakit parang masyadong kalmado ito kahit sa highly stressed situation? Natural ba yun? But just in case merong hidden turmoil dyan, hindi mo lang pinapakita. Like all of us, how do you maintain a certain equanimity, calm, mag-survive ng mga anxiety sa panahon na uncertainty, disturbance, ganyan. Some tips naman about yan, just personal experience.
Ed, kasi ano ako I'm a fan of mindfulness.
Okay.
So, yun, malaking tulong yun sa akin. No? So, the ability, or the practice of stopping once in a while during the day, doing nothing, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No? Parang, yun, nakakatulong yun sa akin. Especially during very, very hectic days. Kasi, yung nga, if you have been following mindfulness practices, the biggest challenge we face is that our mind is always so busy. Diba?
Ilang libong thoughts every day.
Halo-halo na yung mga magagandang thoughts, yung mga pangit, no? Yung mga nakakatakot, yung mga nakakatawa, etc., etc. And you don't seem to be able to control it. No? So if you develop these mindfulness practices, nakakatulong talaga siya.
Pero in concrete, paano yun? You just tell yourself, tigil mo na, huwag ko muna mag-isip. Or do you formally meditate? Do you read something? Do you focus on plants or something? What?
Well, for example, dito sa garden namin, may puno at saka maraming ibon. Ayan, sinusundan ko yung ibon. Or the standard technique naman, hindi ba, is follow your breath.
Tama nga pala.
In and out, yung ganun. And the idea is just to break. Take a break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Ang usual recommendation is about 30. But sometimes 30 minutes. Usually 30 minutes at the start or at the end of the day. But ako kung busy, kahit makalimang minuto lang, para lang mag-break. Mag-break lang yung, otherwise takbo ng takbo eh. Sabi nga ng mga studies, di ba, that about the average person, his mind wanders 50% of the time. So, and that can be very stressful. So, yun ang isang pinagbumula ng stress. So, ako, kung pwede niyong itigil yun kahit sandali, nakakatulong yan na magkaroon ka ng ma-regain ng konting sense of balance at equilibrium. So, yun, that's one tool na. At saka, for some reason, Ed, I don't know, siguro dahil sa dinaanan na rin natin ng panahon na yun, it gives you a sense of perspective of what is important and what's not so important. See, at the end of the day, we don't notice, we worry about so many things that pag tinignan natin na mas malapit, wala namang kakwenta-kwenta ito. Bakit ko ba pinagkakaabalahan ito? No? So, sige, hayaan mo na. So, meditation and mindfulness helps you focus on what's really important. And I think maybe that's the biggest single benefit.
That's good, huh? Oh, we are starting to have practical tips sa buhay ng isang tech lolo.
No, seriously, Ed, kasi for somebody in my line of work, there's so many, so much.
Grabe, I can imagine, huh?
For sure. No?
1,000,001 things.
So kung iintindihin mo lahat yun, if you listen with the same volume to all of that, and you'll go, mababaliw ka at saka mabibingin. Kaya kailangan you have to learn how to shut off some things because otherwise if you don't do that, it will be pinging in your ears all throughout the day and the night. Haven't you ikaw, Ed, I mean ako sometimes ito nung nangyari ito sa mga kapatid ko, pag umapatok maabot na sa ganitong age, nagigising ng early morning.
Dahil yung nasa isip, oo.
Minsan lang, you have to go to the bathroom, tapos hindi ka na makatulog uli. Dahil, nagising na yung utak mo takbo na ng takbo. So that's one of the things I am now trying to cope with, kasi I wake up very early in the morning. Mga 3-4 in the morning.
Wow, that's very early.
So sometimes I have trouble sleeping. Iba naman nakakatulog uli ako. Pero yun nga, that's why I need that mindfulness approach also. Kasi nga, yun, nakakatulong yun na i-still yung mind. Kasi kung hindi mo siya ma-still, talagang mahirapan ka matulog ulit. Yun.
Well, I think that gives me an idea. We will look, gagawin natin constant tanong yan sa ating iba't ibang guests. Ano yung iyong mindfulness practice and experience, no? Kasi may kanya-kanyang method, may kanya-kanyang technique.
Yeah. So what works for you? Yun ang importante.
Yeah, mahalaga. At tama ka, nagsisimula yun, just deliberate, break ka, follow your breath, no? At saka, yung perspective nga na kuminsan sa amin rin dito, yung mga ibang bata natin, mga millennials, so kuminsan masyadong na-agitate sa mga nangyayari. They're all impatient. I remember one time si Ayan, our daughter, said, pero siguro tatay, ikaw dahil dumaan ka na sa detention at iba pa, parang siguro may konti kang perspective na it doesn't have to be as serious as we think. Siguro nga ako, but still, kanya-kanyang henerasyon, kanya-kanyang method. But kahit paano, yun ang spirit natin dito. May natutunan naman kaming nabuhay sa mundo itong matagal-tagal. Siguro we have something to share. In fact, that is one future episode we were thinking of na magkaroon ng dialogue ang seniors and millennials about coping in these times and what we can learn from each other.
That's precisely, yung kaya nga gusto kong i-develop na persona ngayon, Ed, at saka Girlie, is Tech Lolo.
Tech Lolo, tama.
Ano ibig sabihin nun? Kasi nga, ang kausap ko dito si Beth Marcelino.
Oo, tama. Mental health, psikolohiyang Pilipino, tama.
I was thinking, I wanted to develop a persona after my stint in PLDT and Smart. Parang how do I, kasi maraming mga nangyayari in the digital world, in the world of technology, etc. Na magandang sana maipaliwanag pa.
Yeah.
There's so many things. Kasi dami nagbabago. Dami mga bagong technologies that are now available. Pero yung pag-intindi ng mga tao doon, unang-una, ano ba yung technology na yun? Pangalawa, paano gamitin ng tama? Hindi siya natural. So I was thinking, sige, baka pwedeng yun ang gawin ko. No? I can help in that and in sharing that kind of information. Tinanong ko si Beth, sino bang dapat kong kausapin? Yung mga bata o yung mga matatanda? Sabi ni Beth, hindi yung dalawa. At ang maganda sana, pwede mo bang i-bridge yung dalawa?
Tama.
Para mas magkaintindihan yung mga medyo senior at saka yung mga millennial. Hindi na millennial, hindi nga Gen Z, iba na eh.
Gen Z, iba pa nga eh.
Ako, may apo akong 19 years old, 13 years old, and 10.
You have all three generations.
So, segmentation ng market. So, ini-interview ko sila, tuwi-tuwi na. Anak, ano bang balita ngayon? Ano bang usong? Yung mga ganun ba? It's important to have conversations with the young people.
Yeah.
Pero sabi nga ni Beth, you also have to talk with the old people.
Yeah.
No? Kasi, ano ba? Are they keeping abreast of what's happening?
Correct.
No? Na itong magulong eksena ngayon sa social media na there's so many voices speaking at the same time, di ba?
Yeah.
So how do you, as a senior citizen, how do you live in that kind of environment? And how can you, as you put it earlier, Ed, how can you be a useful netizen?
Netizen eh. Kasi sa akin nga, both for ang isa is just for personal, sabihin nating sanity or personal flourishing kung gusto mo. But the other is, all of us in different ways still want to contribute kahit paano sa public conversation, no? And to weigh in, no? And yet we don't want naman na just to be ranting or baka mamaya, wag na lang dyan. How to be active but in a productive way. Sabi mo nga, kombinasyon niya ng technology, how to use it well, and then yung protocols niyan, no? How to make sure na, kasi nga, it's one thing na you make your point and everyone live in a hub, and next time, pag ikaw na naman, wala nang gusto makinig sa'yo. I mean, how do you continue the conversation, no? Yeah. I think mahalaga yun because in the end, I agree with you. Nandito na ito, I would see it primarily in terms of its potential. No? It has its dangers, but I see it more in its potential. Given the fact na we're islands, we're so varied, kailangang magkaroon ng channels of communication, even given the limitations financially and physically of coming together. And ang mahalaga, again, we're not saying, unlike maybe in previous times, pag ikaw masyadong aktivista, you want to dominate the conversation. Ang point is, we just want to be a significant part. Huwag nyo kaming aalisin dyan sapagkat significant ang grupo natin. Pagkat hindi lang tayo malaki-laking grupo, but mahaba-haba ang karanasan, no? And much of it, we have no way to to share with others, no? Anyway, ang gusto kong i-bridge na, otherwise we can go on this forever. Pero maganda yan, tech lolo ka na. Gagawa natin yan ng magandang courses for senior citizen. Yung sinabi mo nga, which I like, sabi mo nga, sa stress ko sa aking trabaho mismo, ang isang outlet ko rin yung ilang CSR programs na paborito ko. Kaya pwede bang yun na lang ang ikwento ko, Ed? At may ilan lang magka-interest dyan, sulit na ang ating usapan. Pero mga nakikinig po, marami na tayong nasulit kayo na, may ilan na tayong advice from mindfulness. Pangalawa, ayusin maging tech sabi, hindi naman tech sabi, kundi komportable na tayo, hindi yung ma-intimidate o ma-overwhelm, no? Pero siguro since si Mon prepared a few slides, magpaliwanag muna siya. Patuloy naman, conversation po ito. Hindi naman po ito parang straightforward lecture. So tell us muna what you want to ikwento sa amin and why, and let's start kwentuhan tungkol dyan. Unang-una doon sa sinabi mong dynamic learning program.
Pero magandang i-make, quick introduction lang para makita natin yung context. Kasi nga, tama yung sinabi mo kanina, Ed, no? So, in the stresses of corporate life, yung aking mental health lifesaver is yung gumawa ng CSR. Meron naman kami mga favorite CSR programs. Many of these are in the line of education. Okay? But just to give you a point of reference, yung sa sinasabi ko kanina ng tech lolo, etc. No? Kasi, how do I say it? Yung pagkatao natin, our physical makeup, no, our brain, no, through millions of years of evolution, na-develop na yung habits at saka the way we think, the way we approach people based on the physical world.
Yeah.
Diba? So, for example, Ed, ikaw, nag-uusap tayo. Pag meron kang kausap, tinitignan mo yung mukha ng tao para mabasa mo sa kanya yung mga signals, no? Na ano ba talagang ibig sabihin? Nagsasabi ba ng totoo ito o binuboda lang ako? And that is innate in our persons, actually in our brain. Kasi yun ang yun ang hardwired sa ating utak na this is how we deal with the physical world. Now, the problem with the cyber world is that all our instincts are not
ibang-iba, no?
It's not the habits, the reflexes that we have developed through evolution is not designed for that environment. So yun ang isang fundamental challenge ng tao ngayon. And the cyber world is huge.
Yeah.
There are about, I saw some estimates na there are about 4.6 billion people already all over the world who are in the internet. Kulang-kulang mga 4 billion in social media. No? So ang daming tao na yan. Tapos you do all sorts of things inside the cyber world now. It's a real world. Okay? Pero it's a real world, pero it's virtual. Real in the sense na, di ba, pwede ka nang bumili.
Tama.
You can transact, we can talk, we can communicate, etc., etc. Pero it is not real. It's virtual. So you have a situation now where your physical makeup, your mental habits and reflexes, which were honed dealing with the physical world, now has to deal with a world that it was not designed for. So yung tao, para mabuhay sa cyber world, di ba? Okay, dito na rin tayo. Nung mali tayo, di ba tinuturuan tayo ng mga magulang kung paano tumawid ng kalye?
Tama, oo.
Paano sumakay ng jeep?
Right, oo, tama.
Tsaka ng bus, no? Di ba? Di mga girlie, sige.
Look to the left, look to the right.
And tama yun. At saka pag tumawid ka ng kalye, dapat perpendicular.
Oo, tama.
Yeah. That's the shortest distance. At saka pag nag-left and right ka, makikita mo both sides. Gano'ng karaming tao ngayon nakakita mo tumatawid ng kalye na diagonal. Diba? Pero yun yung bata tayo, yun ang turo ng mga magulang natin. It's basically teaching kids street smart skills. we need to do the same thing for the cyber world.
Yeah, correct.
So that's my mental framework as a tech lolo. Okay, how is this illustrated by some of the programs that we did in SMART and PLDT? For example, these are some one of our earliest ICT programs for education that we did in SMART was, we called it Smart Schools.
Yeah, I heard of that. Yeah.
We started out this program by installing computer laboratories in selected schools in different parts of the country. And then later on, we combined that, yung pag-install ng mga computer labs, no, sabihin may computers, etc., may internet connection. We also combined it with ICT training for teachers and students. Okay, so we ran that program for how many years? Almost 10 years. 7 years, from 2004 to 2011. Okay, so that sounds actually like a very, how do I say it, conventional ICT program.
Yeah.
You build a computer lab, you train teachers and students to use it, etc., etc. Okay, so we did that for up to 2011, and then we changed gears. Nag-iba kami. But before I go to where we went, I got an insight about that earlier program, itong Smart Schools program. We installed computer laboratories. In a 2015 global study that was done by the OECD,
okay, yung European.
the Organization of Economic Development and Cooperation, something like that. Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. It's an international, it's based in Europe.
All the major industrialized developed economies. No?
Kumbaga, that's the G20 na pinagsama-sama. Diba? So anyway, so they did a study of what was the impact of installing so much computers and technology in schools in terms of the performance of students in mathematics, science,
Physics.
Hindi. Math, science,
and reading.
Reading, I guess. Yeah.
Math, science. Yung tawag doon yung PISA.
PISA, yung PISA test.
Yung PISA test, no? And here's the funny thing that they found. It almost made no difference. Well, siguro the more accurate way to say it is that the results were mixed. The funny part was,
or because may bagong pinasok pero walang bagong resulta, para ganon.
Well, no, kasi the idea, di ba, Ed, is that you invest so much in computer so that you want to see an increase in improvement in performance of the schools. It didn't happen, at least not at the time of the study. In fact, anong nangyari, according to that study, yung mga countries which had invested so much and their students were spending the most time using the computers actually had the worst results.
Phew.
And the countries where the schools had only minor or moderate use of computers had the best results. Most of them were in Asia. Okay, so parang ano nangyari dito?
Yeah.
Well, you would think na, installing computer labs and telling people, showing people how to use it, okay, would make them better. Not so. Hindi yata ganon. Not in the real world anyway. There were a number of reasons for it. I think basically the fundamental reason, I think, is that okay, you installed the equipment, but were the people, both the teachers and the students, prepared to use it properly and effectively? Kasi ang observation ng iba, this is anecdotal as well as systematic. The kids who are using computers a lot or the most suffered the most distraction.
Correct. Tama.
Kasi pag nasa computer ka, nasa online ka, ang
Wala.
dami pwedeng puntahan.
Marami pwedeng puntahan. Tama.
So ano nangyari, instead of concentrating on what they were supposed to do in terms of studies, they were doing something else.
Correct.
No?
Nag-games.
Well, iba pa yun. Pero I'm talking about just surfing the internet, checking out, lalo na kung may social media na, yun.
So-called multitasking.
Actually, the fallacy of multitasking.
Yeah.
No? Akala ng karamihan na tao, lalo na may mga bata, na pwede mag-multitask.
One task at a time. Pabago-bago, bilis-bilis. Ang hirap mag-adjust ang mind mo.
So, but anyway, when I saw that report, sabi ko, oh nga, no? In short, technology, how do I say, can have very unpredictable results. And the key to getting good results is really understanding how to use it.
Yeah.
What is it for? No? And learning the techniques, no? The objective and the techniques of how to use technology.
Okay.
So another way of looking at it, Ed, is that at the end of the day, it is the human factor that's critical.
Yeah, kahuli-hulihan is still the human, yeah.
It's how you as an individual or as a group of individuals, napag-isipan niyo ba kung paano gamitin talaga ito? At na-develop ba natin yung tamang habits? Kasi habits ito eh.
That's right. Habits.
Para magamit itong mga teknolohiya sa effective and beneficial ways. Okay? Now, so just to illustrate that point in a way that's a bit extreme, the next education program that we went into, starting about 2010, so parang nag-overlap tapos nag-switch, no? It's a program that we jokingly refer to as high-tech but no tech.
Oh, how's that?
High-tech but no tech. Literally no tech. And I siguro, can I show my slides na?
Yeah, sure. Before, bago pa mag-slide siya, meron comment tayo interesting Mon ito. Si Minda Soliven Manantan. Sabi niya, please give pointers naman now that seniors interact socially using the chat rooms. Would you suggest protocol or social chats? How do we bridge spontaneity, freewheeling, kwentuhan with bound, restricted conversation? Do we need to put time limits so that everyone gets the chance to speak? Is muting acceptable for social chats? Should social chats be time-bound? You don't have to answer. It's just comment yan na sabi, seryosohin mo na Lolo Tech, ha? Tech Lolo. Sinasabi mong yan ang isang field mo. Magsimula ka ng mag-issue ng tips and let us learn as we go along. Sige.
Well, okay, just to introduce this now, kasi nga, I was telling you, from a standard technology, computer-driven kind of education program, we shifted to something that was very different.
Okay.
It was very scientific, in that sense, very high-tech. But at the same time, no tech. Walang computer.
Okay.
In fact, the only thing you needed for this system of learning is literally pen and paper.
Pen and paper.
Yun lang.
Okay.
Yun lang. That's all you need. I will share this slide na, okay?
Sure.
Andali kasi I'm talking about the dynamic learning program.
Yes.
Okay, let me see. Where is my slide?
Screen sharing.
Basta nasa face, baka binuksan mo na sa iyo yung ano.
Ayan, can you see it?
Shoot.
Okay.
Balik mo
Okay.
sa
Yan.
slideshow. Start. There.
Okay. Okay na? Malinaw?
Yeah, CVIF Dynamic Learning Program.
Yes, okay. This is a learning program. It's a learning system. It's a learning strategy that was developed by these two individuals.
Yeah.
This is dalawang doktor in theoretical physics.
Physics, grabe nga.
Si Dr. Chris at saka si Dr. Marivic Bernido. It's a long story. They went abroad for quite a number of years. Nagturo sila sa US, nagturo rin sila sa Europe as theoretical physicists. And then, pero napilitan silang umuwi kasi matanda na yung nanay ni Chris sa may Bohol, sa Hagna, the town of Hagna. And she got sick na, she was ill, and umuwi sina Chris, and then somebody had to take over the school that was being run by Chris, ng nanay ni Chris. Yun yung CVIF. Okay? So, silang mag-asawa, they took over the school. And over the next, 5-10 years, developed what is now become the dynamic learning program by using very clear scientific principles and integrating into a single system the lessons and best practices that they had learned teaching and studying in the United States and in Europe. And ang suma total na yan is what we now know as the DLP or the Dynamic Learning Program. Started in 2002 And they really initially developed it kasi mga physicists sila. Gusto nila talagang tulungan yung mga estudyante maging magaling sa science, mathematics, the science subjects, STEM. Oh, and by the way, the challenge here is that yung mga estudyante nila sa Hagna ay mga anak ng fishermen at saka mga magsasaka. So, oops, this doesn't look like the crowd that you teach STEM, di ba? But they took on that challenge. Now, what makes this so interesting for us, and that's why we ended up supporting DLPO since we took them on in 2011. Oh, by the way, this slide just simply shows now that the dynamic learning program has now been accepted by the Department of Education.
Good.
As an accredited supplementary learning resource.
Correct.
And they're putting the learning activity sheets of DLP inside the Depth and Commons so teachers and students can access those materials.
Galing.
Okay? So anyway, so why is it so interesting?
Yan, nakita ko nga yan.
Here's the key slide. This is a student-focused learning strategy. And this is the key difference. No? Mahirap maintindihan eh. Pero kasi ang ordinaryong eskwelahan,
teacher ang focus.
yung teacher, ang bida, hindi ba? Okay? He or she speaks virtually 100% of the class. Dito baligtad. The teacher only speaks about 10 to 20% of the time. The student is the one doing all the work for 80% of the class. What are they doing? We'll get to that in detail. Pero the key concept here is that this is a student-focused learning strategy, and it aims to develop the students as independent learners.
Tama.
By the way, that is a core feature of all blended learning strategies. But this one also works face-to-face. Kasi kung blended learning, hindi ka naman pwede makipag-usap sa teacher all the time, di ba?
Yeah, correct.
You can only, limited ang interface. So the student is the one bringing this together, pushing it forward. So first point, it's a student-focused learning strategy aiming to develop the student as an independent learner. What does the teacher do? This is the way I put it. Sa ngayon, karamihan sa mga conventional, the teacher, siya ang bida, the star of the show. But in this learning system, the teacher is the coach.
Tama.
Yung hindi naman ang coach ang nag-shoot ng bola sa basketball, hindi ba?
Yung player.
Yung player. Sino ang player? Yung estudyante. So the teacher as a coach shows the guys, this is how you do it. But the one who does it is not the teacher, it's a student. How does that work? Okay. Here are some key features.
Grabe, low budget, walang internet.
It's very, very low budget. Kasi you don't need internet, you don't need devices, laptops, etc., etc. You don't even need notebooks and books. Okay? This can work whether your classes are being done online, or you're using printed modules. Remember, the original distance learning programs were printed modules.
Printed yan.
And you can also use this if you're using broadcast, radio or television as the mode of delivery. No? So you can imagine why we are pushing this now hard, Ed, no? Because this is what exactly something like this you need in the present situation.
Yeah.
So this thing will work online, this will work printed modules, this will work on broadcast. This applies to whether it's face-to-face, blended learning, or home-based. It's a very, very flexible system. And it applies everything from kindergarten up to senior high school, and some tertiary institutions are already using it for college. So it's that flexible approach. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it's really self-directed content. It's student-focused. It improves the student engagement performance. Ito yung importante. It can work with minimal teacher and parent intervention. which makes it very suitable for the current situation na mahirap mag-face-to-face class. At saka yung mga magulang natatakot na sila yung magiging teacher. No.
Oo, totoo.
They don't have to be. They have functions to perform in terms of supervising, pero hindi sila ang magtuturo. Tapos, here's the nice stuff. There is a built-in assessment. Kasi sinasabi ng, how can you assess students in a distance learning setting?
Performance.
Pero meron itong built-in assessment portfolio. How does it work? Sige nga. Here are the key components. Yung tinatawag na learning activity sheet. This is the core.
Yeah.
This is student-focused, not teacher-focused. Kasi usually yung mga lesson plan, teacher-focused yun. It guides the teacher on what he or she will do or say during the class. The learning activity sheet is what the student will do in class. Okay? And what you do is, okay, you have learning activity sheet in every class, every day. Can you imagine that? Araw-araw, bawat klase may quiz ka. Okay? And what happens to that, all those learning activity sheets, you can assemble them into a portfolio. Okay. Now, how does that work? Here's an example of a learning activity sheet. Take a good look at. Tignan niya.
Information, concept, example,
Exercise.
The exercise. Yun ang crucial, no?
Okay? Can you imagine? Ako, initially, when I learned about this, nahirapan ako maintindihan eh. Walang teacher intervention dito.
Oo nga, ikaw na lang, bahala ka, no?
No prior lecture. Okay? But then, and here's the other thing. The student, yan, every day, every class yan. Okay? It's designed to be focused on the student. And here's the kicker. Even if you have a printed sheet, the student copies everything into a sheet of paper.
Para okay.
So
because the
nare-retain pag sinulat. Tama.
No, it is retained better and the comprehension becomes more firm.
Yeah.
And by the way, you create proof that the student actually did it because it's in his handwriting.
Hindi lang binasa kasi sinulat mo talaga. At saka hindi pwedeng i-xerox lang somewhere.
No. And this is non-negotiable, Ed.
Screenshot sa phone.
Hindi pwede yun. You have, the student has copy. Hindi pwedeng kokopya, lang? No. He has, even if bibigyan na siya ng printed module, kokopyahin pa rin niya yun.
Galing
because it sticks in the brain.
Tama.
Okay? So here are some other, okay, here. So why do retention?
Retention, tama.
Focus. Kasi habang kinokopya mo yun, nakafocus ka dun sa kinokopya mo eh.
Naka-endurance.
Kasi, ito mo yan ha, kokopyahin mo lahat yan ha. May drawing pa.
Ngayon ko lang napakinggan. Nung una, akala ko simple yung may daily test. So nawawala na yung takot ng estudyante sa test. So magaling na siya mag-perform. Pero itong isusulat mo, ngayon ko lang na-pick up yan sa'yo.
But I want to follow through on what you just said, Ed. Kasi ako, what really struck me about this thing, kasi this every day, you have a quiz.
So
every subject. Kaya nga ang ginagawa nila, by the way, just to, para naman you see the context also. Because it is very exacting and strenuous during classes. Kasi nga, every class meron pang quiz kumbaga na ginagawa. They only have 4 academic, in the face-to-face classes, they only have 4 academic days in a week. Wednesday is for non-academic activity.
Para may tama.
Number 2, walang homework.
Tama, yun. Mahalaga yun, walang homework.
Because ang sabi ni na Doc Chris at Marivic, they found out from neurological studies that the adolescent brain needs to rest at night. Kailangan ng pahinga. Which is so different from what we learn in conventional schools.
Hanggang
gabi, meron kang assignment.
Punuin.
No? So, okay. Let me go quickly then. So that's why it's so important to copy this and write it in your own handwriting. Okay? And here are some more examples of what learning activity sheets. Answer the exercise without prior lecture yan. Ako, initially, when they made a presentation to the PLDT Smart Foundation, yung tinanong talaga sa kanila ng mga bosses ko, how can the students learn without any lecture? Sabi naman nila, sir, actually, they can. If you do it this way. Kasi ang ginawa ng mga Bernidos is that they sliced up a very complex subjects into small bits.
Bite-size.
Bite-size lang. So the student learns step by step. And because it is step by step, mas nagigets na mga bata, ganito pala siya. And this is where I connected to your point earlier, Ed. No? Can you imagine what happens to the psychology of a student who finds out that he can actually answer the questions of the quiz? And he does it every day. In every class. I asked si Chris, Doc Chris, did you ever bother to count how many questions you ask your students in the course of a school year? Napaisip siya. Hindi nga, no? We haven't counted. So they counted it. It's about 5,000 to 6,000 questions a year.
Grabe, no?
So sabi ko, Chris, ay simple naman pala ang formula nyo. Because you make the student work very hard, but you break it up so you also make it easy for him to answer. Now, what happens to a student who finds out, kaya ko palang sagutin ito?
Yung confidence.
Yung confidence, di ba? Sa akin, in my own personal experience, that is the secret sauce.
Correct.
To comment on the traditional style, sometimes you get the feeling that quizzes are made to trick you.
Yeah, that's right.
Di ba? Yung merong trick question na naka-embed dun sa questions. You have 2 or 3 trick questions. No? The logic there is that gusto nilang i-separate sino talaga yung magagaling.
Right, the bright.
At sino yung medyo, normal lang.
Slower learner.
That's my reading of what teachers are trying to do. But here, the logic is the reverse. They make it easy for the students to learn it piece by piece, step by step, because when you build the student's confidence in his ability to learn,
they'll become learners. Lifelong learners talaga yan.
Nawawala yung takot. For me, that is the most important thing about this approach. Okay? So just a few more points, no? Yan. Here are other samples of learning activity sheets.
May maths, may science. Galing.
So isa pa, this one is science, meron pa namang English.
Meron rin, okay. Meron rin Tagalog. May Filipino rin. Language.
Just remember, Ed, copy every single thing.
Yeah, yun ang takeaway ko rito. Yan ang bagong hindi ko napakinggan sa DLP presentation.
So, okay, when you copy all of it, there it ends up.
Yung portfolio. Mahalaga yung portfolio.
Ay, nako. In Cagayan de Oro City some years ago, nung tinamaan sila ng storm, and I can't remember so binaha yung mga eskwelahan. So after the storm, pumunta yung mga ibang estudyante sa eskwela. Tapos, alam mo ang pakay nila, hinahanap nila yung kanilang portfolio.
Save. Tama.
They wanted to find and save their portfolios because they felt so scared na nasira ng bagyo yung kanilang portfolio. Dahil sabi nga ng mga bata, ay, yan ang gawa ko.
Sa kayo ng proof na may alam ako.
So that's this kumbaga what you call it, your built-in system of what ensuring or at least getting some proof that the student actually did some work. Sabi ng iba, paano kung kinopya lang niya? Okay? Worst case scenario, kinopya lang niya. Pero the mere act of writing the damn thing.
Yeah.
Meron siyang mapupulot kahit paano. Okay? So that's how it works na, no? Okay, so yun nga ito. May student body of work, may proof of learning. In a way, you develop accountability. No? Tapos may source of authentic assessment. Okay? Tapos, sandali. Yan. Okay. What has been the results? Okay? Let me put it this way. In 2012, nakausap ko si then ARM, anong tawag nito? What do you call the head of ARM?
Governor.
Si Governor Hataman.
Si Mujib. Okay. Yeah.
So we had a chance to talk with him kasi hirap na hirap ang mga eskwelahan sa ARM.
Ito.
So nag-usap kami ni Gob. Sabi ko, Gob, kulang ba kayo ng mga teacher? Oo. Kulang ba kayo mga eskwelahan? Oo nga. Paano yung mga libro? Kulang din eh. So kulang lahat. So sabi ko, sir, baka gusto niyong gamitin ito. So they started adopting the DLP in the island of Basilan in 2012.
Wow.
And today, we're happy to learn about a month or two ago kasi nga, nagkahandaan na lahat ng mga eskwelahan no? To prepare for this opening of classes. Sabi ng mga tiga-Basilan, ready na kami.
Siyempre, pag ganyan, no?
Because they're using this system. Meron na silang learning. By the way, we are assembling a whole portfolio of learning activity sheets that will be placed in DepEd Commons.
Wow.
From grade 1 to senior high.
Wow.
So schools can actually go to the DepEd Commons and download this if they want to have working models now. In other words, they don't have to write up their own.
Yeah.
They can use this right away. Okay? So yung learning activity sheets are already available. Kaya nga meron it will be available in DepEd Commons. It's also available in dlp.ph.
Oh.
Okay? So there's another group that's also well prepared. This is the alternative learning system.
ALS. That's our field.
Kasi yung ALS naman, distance learning talaga sila.
Talaga from the beginning.
So itong sinasabi ngayon na new normal, old normal na sa kanila yun.
Dati na.
And some of the ALS bureaus or regional offices have already adopted DLP, particularly in Mindanao. So nagagamit na nila itong approach na ito sa kanilang Nakausap ko nga yung head si ASEC, what's her name?
Ambat. DH Ambat.
Sige, GH. Okay na, handaan na ba kayo, ma'am? Oh, yes. Ready na kami.
Tagal na. Sabi ka ng taga-ALS sa DepEd, sa formal school, ba't hindi kayo matuto sa amin? Matagal na kami nagsimulang ganyan.
Well, the irony, Ed, is that in this pandemic situation, the parts of the educational system that used to be considered second-class citizens,
sila ngayon
sila ngayon ang handa.
Yes.
Tama.
No. And I have a personal attachment to that kasi, di ba, Ed, drop out ako eh.
Oo nga pala, no? Marami sa atin kasi.
I never finished college, no? It was only much later that I was given a professional degree. So I now have a degree. But for many, many years, I was really a dropout. Okay? And that's why I became interested in distance learning. And at that time, wala pang internet noon. Online yan. Okay? And I remember having a conversation with some professors who were questioning, dapat ba bigyan ng diploma itong mga distance learners? Medyo, parang, masakit yun. Kasi they don't have face-to-face interaction. The quality of their learning experience hindi makakatapat dun sa talagang face-to-face. Which is, sabi ko, in my mind, that's true. But there's also another angle to this. Sabi ko na lang when they were asking my opinion, sabi ko, alam mo, let me put it this way. Yung nagdi-distance learner, karamihan, number one, mas matanda na yan.
Medyo mas motivated na yan.
He's more mature. Mas alam niya kung anong gustong gawin niya sa buhay niya. Yung motivation niya mas maliwanag. And he or she is the one paying for it.
Correct. Tama.
Okay. So, okay, he or she has to work with these handicaps. But in terms of motivation, compare a distance learner to your ordinary student in your classroom who is physically present but mentally absent.
Correct.
Dahil yung kanyang utak nandun sa nag-away sila ng girlfriend nila nung kahapon, paano ito, no? So, I mean, in terms of motivation, the distance learner, I think, has a distinct advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And I will extend it in this way to this discussion in the way that the distance learner is a motivated, self-propelled learner.
Talagang learner.
An independent learner. And this is what I like the most about DLP. It pushes independent learning. Okay? And for me, that is the secret sauce. Because what happens to a kid, ano nangyayari sa bata? Pag natuto siyang matuto. Pwede mo nang pakawalan.
Oo, dire-diretso na yan.
Bahala na siya.
Lifelong learner.
Oo, tuloy-tuloy, yun ang basis ng lifelong learning. Lifelong learning has to be, the foundation of that has to be, the guy has to be trained, learned how to be an independent learner.
Galing.
Now, look at this discussion. There's no technology.
No internet.
No computer. No, but it works fine with internet.
Yeah, it can help even.
In fact, with this DLP, you can maximize the value of it.
Many more.
Imagine what happens to an independent learner who has internet access. Okay?
Sabi nga nung isang, Mon, I'd like to interrupt. May isang nag-PhD yan, I heard his lecture. Sabi nga niya, alam mo, sa ngayon, and he's pushing it now for professional education and college education. With all the resources niya sa internet, ang main challenge na lang sa teacher or curriculum designer is curating. Kasi sa napakarami, anong pipiliin? It can be a service. But yung learner, bahala na siyang ang mahalaga lang, nakita ko, unlike itong sa isa na susulat, paano mo i-ensure na yung learner na yon maliban sa dinownload, ay may gagawin na medyo mas ma-embed sa kanyang consciousness yung natutunan. But I think the same principle applies even more to adult learners. Mag-a-adjust na lang tayo. Ang galing. Yung the tech Lolo courses in the future, remember, will be driven by a dynamic learning program strategy.
And to add to that, Ed, for me kasi, that's why going back to you mentioned tech Lolo, kasi there's a tendency to, when you have discussions about technology, kasi ang flashy yung technology. It's this nice-looking smartphone or this great-looking laptop or this
gadgets,
artificial intelligence na may IoT, etc., Internet of Things. Now that's kasi yun ang flashy. But underneath all of this is still the human factor.
The learner.
No? Kailangan masakyan natin yung ating psyche. Paano ba magagamit itong mga technology na ito para yung learning process ay ma-enrich at ma-enhance. And that can't be if you just focus on the technology alone. You also have to look at, in fact, your starting point ay yung tao. It's the human factor that is critical.
Actually, may literature sa so-called, ang tawag nga doon, accelerated learning. Not in the sense na mabilis kang matuto, kundi hindi mo kailangang ulit-ulitin sapagkat talagang solid ang learning. At ang dalawang principle which I remember, ang una sabi nila, learning is not primarily passive consumption.
Yes.
It is activity. It's active discovery, active creation. Isa yon. Tapos pangalawa, yung yung pwedeng collaborative at hindi na. Yun, I think that's the other angle na we're trying to develop. Pero maganda.
Well, by the way, you mentioned collaborative. The collaboration is part and parcel of the
DLP.
This process. Kasi, can you imagine a situation, walang lecture?
Oo nga, no?
So, they create venues in which students can share.
Mhm.
No? So that's part of the learning process, part of the techniques that they use in DLP. No? So basta the idea is, kailangan ikaw, the individual, and as a group, you have to do it. Ang isang feature nga, kung pumunta ka sa isang eskwelahan na in the normal times na gumagamit ng DLP, the thing that you will notice is that it's so quiet. Ang tahimik.
Oo.
Kasi nagsusulat yung mga bata. Walang nagle-lecture or very few lectures. It's the students working on their activity sheets, copying it, writing it down, and answering. So, but for me, connecting this kind to Tech Lolo, people have to, what I want, the overall message is that, technology is nice and flashy, but at the end of the day, it's still people that count.
Tama. Tama.
How do we get technology to really help people to do whatever they want to do, whether it is learning, or doing something else?
Correct.
And that's the kind of dialogue that I want. Kasi people tend to focus on the flashy. Yun ang yun ang natural tendency natin . Na hindi nakikita yung nasa ilalim.
Saka ang irony pa, Mon, for others, ito ibang issue na yan. Kung minsan sabi lang, ay, parang mas mura. Paano yung budget kung mas malaking gusto kong gastusin? Ako naman, I think you can increase your budget, pero ang susi dyan, when you want to train or retrain your teachers and all that, not for the technology, itong method na ito, kasi ano rin yan, it takes also time and effort and expertise and money. Kasi kung minsan ganun sa organization, ano yan, Mon, ang galing-galing, tapos mura, ay, para kontra sa akin.
Well, but like I said, this is really a low-budget exercise. It can be done very inexpensively. And by the way, hindi ko na nasabi yung anong resulta.
Oo nga, doon maraming pumasok sa UKAT, balita ko.
Yes. Because the emphasis is really on the STEM subjects, which are the core subjects of many of the exams. Okay? Tapos, the students become independent learners, the good ones, the really good ones. But for me, the most impressive part of this is that, kasi there are many systems that I've seen, I personally experienced, where which benefits the really gifted or this one tends to have an even effect. Hindi lang iilan, yung top 10% ang nakikinabang. It's a broad base. So maraming estudyanteng nakikinabang. And the best of them are able to get into the top schools. Pumapasa sa UPCAT, nakakapasok sa ibang mga state universities. Kaya nga tuwan-tuwa si Governor Hataman that he was getting graduates from Basilan.
Grabe,
State colleges and universities.
Galing.
On all this low budget, low tech, actually no tech, but very scientific approach. Well, so that's why we have been pushing and advocating this one, this particular advocacy, and we're hoping that now, under pandemic conditions, it's particularly useful. Kasi essentially, what we are now conducting is really distance learning. Yun ang gawin ng DepEd, di ba? Now, the only question is how will you do it? Is it printed modules? Is it online? Or will you use radio and television? The nice thing about this system is that it will work on all three.
Correct.
And also, it will work face-to-face.
Correct. Pero ang ganda dyan mo serendipity na nagkataong the acronym is pareho, Distance Learning Program, Dynamic Learning Program.
Yeah.
Pero alam mo, just looking back quickly, we're winding up. Grabe, tama-tama, buti nag-focus tayo rito. Even if we had only one topic, sabi mo nga, Mon, we went into it deep at sulit ito. Alam mo, yung usapin ng parang in the current as a case in point about advocacy. Kasi nandun yung nag-pioneer. And they were promoting it in their own ways. But when you picked it up, at pinromote ninyo sa Smart PLDT, siyempre na broadcast, no?
Yeah.
So mas maraming nag-pick up. And you would say almost, because in the end, ano bang advocacy? Gusto nating yung mas may pera at may kapangyarihan ay tanggapin at gamitin yung sinimulan ng mas maliit na mas kokonti ang pera at kokonti ang authority. But it is, I think, at this point already, an interesting case. It might not have been very strategic, conscious all the time. Net effect, if the DepEd, as DepEd now says, pero halata mo ha, pandagdag pa lang. Hindi pa yun ang main when actually eventually that should really be the main learning strategy. Pero wag na nating piliting mabilis, baka masyadong mag-resist yung iba. Kasi nga they're still in the old mode na, ay, paano pa palang teacher? Ay, paano nga? But I think it is a successful case na yung nasimulan in one place got broadcasted, got promoted, got validated. So I would say this is not just a case of a CSR program. It's a classic case of how good practices normally started by NGOs, citizens group, na advocate towards the public authorities and hopefully will put not just policies but the resources. Because in the end, ang habol naman natin dito is hindi magpabida, kundi makinabang in the best way possible ang ating hindi lamang learners natin at families, kundi ating communities. No, thank you na napili.
By the way, Ed, we've been conducting webinars over the past couple of weeks. I think we have reached something like 500,000 public school teachers already.
Wow.
Because with the endorsement of DepEd, they invited, they sent notices to all of their regional offices and told them that we will be running these webinars during these times. So maraming nag-participate, and we're hoping that more schools will adopt them. No? And if you can see the for those of you
links,
nandito na, it's all there. You can go to there's a Facebook page, there is a website of DLP, and there are videos that show you how to do it.
Galing.
So ang dami because of the webinars, marami kaming na-record. There's a lot of material already that we have processed and posted already. So you can just go to the sites and just take a look. Kasi yung video mas magandang nagpapaliwanag. Yung mga experts, yung mga talagang nag-implement na, they've been doing it for 8, 10, 11 years already. Okay?
Wow! Tama ka. Kahit ito lang, sulit na. But then, it's patikim pa lang po ito. This is the first Tech Lolo lecture. Na irony ang message niya, huwag kayong ma-intimidate dyan sa tech na yan o mag-imagine. The heart of it is yung tao, how to use the technology properly. And at the same time, understanding that the technology can really enhance it. No, totoo, across distance, across time. Wow, alam mo, can you imagine? It's so interesting. We're into our last 7 minutes na ng ating grabe, with no commercial interruptions and only a couple of text. Marami pang nagko-comment, but I think we don't want to go. Marami pang ibang topics. We should sabihin na lang natin kay Edna, sige Edna, you can have a second shot at Mon. I-tech Lolo mo dyan sa kabila sa isang Martes. Pero otherwise, gusto niya sa Hong Kong dahil nag-aano siya. May distance learning sila sa financial literacy, mga OFW sa Hong Kong.
Ed, the other subject I'd like to discuss also, if you give me, if I have another opportunities, I don't know if the people would be interested, is cybersecurity.
Yes, ayusin natin yun.
Schedule it na.
Hindi, ako, we'll, seryosohin na natin yung branding mo sa sarili mo. Kung papangatawan mo ang Tech Lolo mo, Lolo Tech. Mag-isip na lang tayo, yung sabi mo nga, yung mga bite size, para slowly we develop more savvy netizens, no?
Napanood namin si Snowden, nakakatakot. Pati yung connected, yung cloud. Oh my God, sabi ko, ayoko na mag-internet.
I'll give you a teaser.
Yes.
mula nung nag-COVID, mas lalong dumami yung cyber kalokohan.
Oh,
Ay, totoo,
no,
totoo.
yes.
Unfortunately.
Grabe. I mean, I can give you figures next time, pero talagang astronomic increase kasi kumbaga people know, the cyber crooks know people are online o nandun din sila. Kaya that's why I'm also personally concerned because it's really become a much bigger threat to individuals. So kailangan talaga mas maraming tao, matanda at bata, ay maintindihan kung paano, how do you deal with this kind of problem.
Ay, sige, let's
Sige, schedule mo na yan.
Take you up na lang. You
Yes.
want
Oh.
a second Saturday from now.
Or which
Sige.
Saturday are you
Mag-focus sa
free?
which
Let me just
Saturday.
confirm. I'll check my schedule, pero
Check.
Sige.
Basta, sige po, at least promise.
Importante yan.
May Tech Lolo Part 2. In this
Oo.
case naman, this is the inspiring challenge. Ito naman, nervousin kayo. Hindi, pero ang point is, ma-empower naman tayo how to be sensitive to this. Bagong field, sabi mo nga, any field pwedeng for good, may iba naman yung will use it for
consequences.
And malaking bagay.
I'm afraid that ganun talaga.
Ay, ganun sa buhay.
A lot of good can also be used to do a lot of harm.
Oo, totoo naman yun. But this is great, no, Mon? Talagang 4 minutes to go, so wind up tayo. Grabe! Pero I think po sa mga nagtanong, kasi nga kung minsan yung iba, ang kanilang signals nagbabago raw. Unang-una po, this is recorded. So this will be available po sa iba't ibang sites, but particularly sa Lapis Siso channel. But in the various FB pages na nag-host nito, they're also there, so you can replay them. No? Pangalawa, before we discuss this DLP, remember yung a few key points na inano ni Mon. No? I think even that we should discuss, this whole mindfulness thing, but we can discuss with other people also. Kasi nga, that is part also of mental health. Ako minsan, yung especially the early months na daily barrage ng news at kailangan kang mag-dieta kung hindi talagang ka. Ang hirap handle na sa emotion mo, But I think above all, I think the one that we found most useful dito, these are not just nice, bright ideas. Ang yamang karanasan nito ng how, sabi mo nga, including yung mental health ni Mon, na gusto niyang may magagawa ba ako maliban dito sa pressure ng competitive corporate world to start doing something and discovering something na on their own would still be doing something, but it will be slow, it will be small, it will be limited. At nung nag-link kayo sa kanila, nag-broaden ang impact and has reached this point. Malaking bagay yung nagawa ninyo. No? Malaking bagay.
One final note, Ed, from my side. My nightmare, my personal nightmare about DLP was when yung mag-asawang Bernido were invited by the Indonesian Education Ministry.
Baka sila kuha.
Na they were invited to give them a briefing regarding what they were doing. So my biggest personal fear is baka sila pang mauna kaysa sa Pilipinas ang makinabang o gumamit. Pero hopefully now, at least this is hopefully one bright spot in this COVID pandemic situation is there will be a more widespread use of DLP para mas maraming makinabang na mga estudyante at mga eskwelahan dito sa Pilipinas.
I think perfect po that at least yung ating Saturday is about lifelong learning. So I think we should try to push this some more, no? But maganda rito, may maganda tayong pangkiliti kasi may bago tayong may bago tayong resource person. The first tech lolo in the Philippines, self-declared.
Oy, tuwa yung mga nagko-comments kasi
sige nga, ilan nga?
Sabi ni na Mark Steve Manzano, thank you po for this idea. Ang organisasyon po namin may inisyatiba din sa distance learning. Napakalaking tulong po nito.
Okay. Sige. I will send you Ed yung mga ang tawag nito, yung mga websites, no? And,
sige.
And I'll post them, no?
Sabi ng mga lolo, makakatulong daw sa kanilang mga apo.
Tama.
Sila na.
Okay.
Bravo
Maganda yun,
daw,
ah.
bravo.
How to be a tech lolo at home and
Oo.
assist your
Apo,
learners in a distance
apostolate.
learning program.
Oo.
Tama! Ang galing.
Apostolate. Yan.
Ang galing, galing, galing talaga. O
Okay.
sige, wind up na tayo. Acknowledgement sa maliban sa ating napaka-interesting Tech Lolo. Maraming salamat muli po sa CISO Channel for offering the result as a free channel to us. Gary Granada, maraming salamat. Isa pa rin yung hindi makatulog at maagang nagising. Kailangan mo mindfulness. Sa ating tech
Mga
support,
tech support.
si Gerald, si Rhoda, si Caitlin, at yung bago nating tech from Inet, si Daryl. At higit sa lahat, Girlie, last word.
Bravo daw. Bravissimo. Galing pa sa mga fans natin. Dynamic daw.
Thank you. Tama ka,
Thank you,
Mon.
thank
Kahit
you.
ito lang,
Oo.
sulit na.
Oo,
na-
sa dami ng mga apo na naghihintay ng mga iPad, ng mga gadgets, at mga kung ano-ano, dapat nating ipaliwanag sa kanila.
Mahalaga
It is
yun.
in their hands. Hindi kailangan ng maraming gadgets at expensive iPhones.
Okay.
So, patikim lang po ito.
Oo.
Kung nagustuhan po rin nyo, watch out po.
Yes.
May mga darating
May
pang
susunod
iba
pa.
kasama ng ating Tech Lolo series. Including most probably yung next is on cybersecurity naman.
Okay.
Okay, again, thank you very much.
Good
We end
Saturday.
here. Thank you. You made our Saturday afternoon. Ay, iting! Sa likod. Maraming
Yay!
salamat. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Sige, thanks, Mon.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
muli